Okay, what are the significant news and views expressed in the past week from August 12 to the 20th? The first we chose from the uncounted numbers of news items is the view coming from the South Korean president. And this is the headline we chose. Moon vents Korea frustration by asserting right to veto the U.S. And this is very significant because this is a statement that puts the U.S.-South Korean relations in some critical position. South Korean President Moon Jae-in has signaled his country will no longer stay quiet as tensions escalate between the U.S. and North Korea. In a forceful speech on Tuesday, last August 15, Moon asserted the right to veto any military action against Kim Jong Un's regime, saying that any such decision should be made by, quote, ourselves and not by anyone else, unquote. He vowed to prevent war at any cost, a statement that drew a sharp contrast with President Donald Trump, who has warned of, quote, fire and fury, unquote, if North Korea continues to threaten the U.S. To quote again, Moon's speech speaks to his frustration and his nation's wider frustration. And that is the perennial problem that they are not masters of their own destiny when it comes to North Korean geopolitics, said Ewan Graham, a director at the Lowy Institute in Sydney. Quote again, the U.S. now sees itself as the primary concern and the South Koreans as a secondary concern, unquote. Moon's speech risks exacerbating a rift between the U.S. and South Korea over the best approach to dealing with North Korea. Okay, I'll cut that report short because we are short of time. And maybe if there are any comments, we'll bring it in the last minute or so. Second item is from our Philippine press, but in all our media, mainstream media and alternative media, this is the headline: Immigration to issue landed visas to Chinese traveler. This is a headline we chose from Sunstar. What is the meaning? The Bureau of Immigration will be issuing landed visas to Chinese travelers to further boost the tourism and economy of the country. According to the Bureau of Immigration, the new program is in compliance with the Department circular granting visa upon arrival to Chinese nationals issued by Justice Secretary Vitaliano Aguirre II. Bureau of Immigration Commissioner Jaime Morente believed that through the program, more Chinese tourists and investors will enter the country. Quote, through this scheme, we aim to facilitate the expeditious entry and admission of Chinese nationals into the country and thus attract more tourists and investors from China. Okay, we'll cut it off there and I'll just add some information. In 2016, Chinese tourist arrivals of around 600,000. The aim is to hit 1 million in 2017. It was down to 300,000 in 2013, 2014. So we see progress being made. And more if this visa upon arrival starts. Okay, and from a broader perspective about BRICS, a historic day, says Zuma, at the launch of the BRICS Bank African unit. Now, the BRICS Bank is, of course, the bank of the what is now called the New Development Bank, and this is the report. The African Regional Center of the New Development Bank NDB was launched by South African President Jacob Zuma on Thursday in Johannesburg. The African Regional Center will allow countries in the continent to have access to $100 billion of the New Development Bank. Quote, this is a critical milestone not only for South Africa but the African continent as a whole, unquote. Zuma said, adding that the NDB will grow from strength to strength. We expect the NDB through the regional center to contribute to energy and other productive sectors, Zuma added. The NDB headquarters were officially opened in Shanghai, China in February 2016. The new lender is expected to strengthen the group's ability to offer developing nations the support traditionally given by the U.S. and Japan through organizations like the World Bank. The new development bank came into existence after 3 years of negotiations among members of BRICS. The BRICS Bank has 23 projects at various stages of preparations for 2017 to 2018 with a total lending amount of $6 billion. NDB President K.V. Kamath said at a press conference last month in Shanghai. In 2016, the bank granted $1.5 billion in loans to 7 projects. The bank has an initial authorized capital of $100 billion. Its initial subscribed capital of $50 billion will be equally shared among the founding members. The BRICS members, China, India, and Russia, are also the 3 largest shareholders in the China-led Asian Infrastructure Bank. Okay, let's move on to the next news item. Let's see. This is on the U.S. No. Is that correct? This is a Pew survey. Most countries. Okay, now we go to Bolivia. U.S. hegemony has come to an end, according to Bolivian Foreign Minister, who rejects the idea of intervention in Venezuela. And this is due to the Donald Trump's latest threat of a military intervention in Venezuela, while underlining Caracas' right to self-determination without outside meddling. Speaking to RT Russia Today in Moscow following his meeting with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. Okay, let's go to the other news item that we skipped a while ago. The survey, the Pew survey. Most countries, including U.S. allies, trust Putin more than Trump on foreign policy. This is a poll made by the Pew survey, published August 17. The poll showed that at least 7 European Union countries trust Russian President Vladimir Putin more than U.S. President Donald Trump. Greeks appear to have the highest confidence in Putin, 31% higher than their confidence in Trump, followed by Germany with a plus 40% differential, and Hungary plus 5%. Putin is also most trusted in France, Sweden, Italy, and Spain than his U.S. counterpart. And let me say that I just had a family visitor from Germany, the Kluftinger family. They stayed in our house for a while, and they say the Russians, the Germans have nothing to fear from Russia. It has always been Germany that has been attacking Russia in the past. But why is the U.S. President Trump imposing sanctions on Russia? Okay, and finally, Germany sides with China and Russia, supports China peace plan. In a telephone conversation with Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi, German Foreign Minister Sigmar Gabriel reportedly backs China's proposal for a double freeze of North Korean ballistic missile and nuclear weapons tests in return for a cessation of U.S. military exercises in South Korea. The Chinese Foreign Ministry is claiming that German Foreign Minister Sigmar Gabriel is backing China's proposal for a double freeze as a route out of the Korean crisis. China's double freeze proposal requires North Korea to freeze its ballistic missile development and nuclear weapons program in return for the U.S. freezing the military exercises it routinely carries out on the Korean peninsula with South Korea. Once a double freeze is in place, China proposes that North Korea and the U.S. begin direct talks as a way to achieving a peace treaty which would bring the Korean War to a formal end. Okay, we'll cut that news there. And I don't think there's any other item. We'll ask our analyst and now radio broadcaster, radio commentator, every 5 to 7 a.m. Mondays to Fridays. A.m., early in the morning. So what are your reactions to these news and developments, Mr. Ado Paglinawan?
Well, I think the time has come when the most feared moment in U.S. hegemony that has been existing since World War II. It has come. And be that as it may, it could have started with President Duterte. It could have started when President Duterte started emphasizing on independent foreign policy for the Philippines, and later on assuming the chairmanship of ASEAN, President Duterte has somewhat influenced ASEAN thinking from distancing from where it was directly with the U.S. before. And now, not just amongst themselves, but with China.
Yeah.
This is happening in South Korea. This veto is self-explanatory. It has happened before in Japan. Japan does not want to preclude itself from importing oil from Russia, and has in fact been negotiating that a submarine pipeline be connected between Vladivostok and its northern island of Hokkaido. And this is spreading even in Latin America. In the case of Bolivia, there is no longer a unilateral superiority viewed upon the United States, but now somewhat exposing the United States to just merely supporting itself and its own vested interest in international relations. So we see a world opening up, and we see leadership going regional. This is true in Europe in favor of Russia, and this is true in Asia in favor of China. And that is why I look at this as a welcome development, because this will have more moorings towards peace when the individual interests of countries, especially in the economic area and the economic aspect, is maximized to benefit their own and not just of those of the United States.
Okay, so exactly at the last second, we've heard the view of our analyst, Mr. Ado Paglinawan, and you can hear him more in Fact Daily, 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. on Radio Pilipinas, 738 on your AM dial. Okay, let's take this transition to our Philippine-China focus.